Today in our program, we are delighted and honored to present a truly outstanding personality in the Indian film industry, none other than Mr. Ramanand Sagar himself. We are here visiting Ramanand Sagar's studio, the Nataraj studio right here in Bombay. We'll also be visiting and we'll be bringing you segments from his residence. This will be an exclusive interview. He's also in the working group of the National Film Policy, Government of India, and a gentleman whose contribution both at the technical, practical, and intellectual level in the film industry is simply supreme. Mr. Ramanand Sagar, it's a pleasure to have you on the program with us. And before I go any further, it's fascinating to sit down here and in your office interviewing you with especially a man of your caliber. It was fascinating to see that you started your career as a clapper boy. Tell us a little bit about that, sir.
Well, it's a normal thing. When I entered films, it was in 1936. I think it's about more than 40 years.
Fantastic.
About 44 years or 45 years should be now. That was the year of my wedding also.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Because I still remember that for my wedding I had to, you know, in India, the bridegroom has to go on a horse and carry a sword in his hand.
Right.
So I had to borrow the sword from my film company. So
I see.
I still remember that.
I see.
So I was working there, and that was an era when from silent to talkie were
That's
just, it was not all talkie, it was not all silent films. That it was, you know, the, what you say, the twilight period, and I started working in Lahore. Then after that, I became an assistant of a director at that time called Mr. Arya, and we made a silent movie. After that, there was a crash of the industry in Punjab for some years. Then I sauntered into journalism, became a journalist. Actually, the point was that at that time, later on I realized that my education was not yet complete. So I entered journalism, and I used to study in the night schools and night colleges, and then got my degree, then got my master's degree in Persian literature. And all
Wow,
that.
I see.
So for a few years I sauntered that, came back as an actor, as a hero in a film in Punjab in about 41, 42. Unfortunately, that picture, just before it was going to be completed, the heroine died.
Oh, that's true.
Then I was again thrown back.
You've worn different hats in terms of making a motion picture. You've been a producer, a director, an actor, a writer. Which of the roles have you felt most comfortable, and which of the roles has given you the most amount of satisfaction?
It's difficult, Mr. Chandrasekar, to tell you, because unfortunately as an actor, the role was never completed. I acted in a couple of films, but those films were never released, and somewhere something happened. In one movie, the heroine died when the movie was about 80% ready. Another movie in Pune of Mr. Shri Krishna Bhagwan, I was playing Abhimanyu in that, it didn't cross the halfway. And in the meantime, the partition came, and Mr. Ahmed had to leave for Pakistan. He went to Pakistan.
I see.
But as I was telling you, that since I had burnt my hands in production earlier, as soon as I became a writer and I got big success, a lot of people came around me and somebody came with some money, somebody came with proposals, and I, like a very innocent fool, I should say, accepted things, and I thought that I'll become a big producer. But then I did not know business. I was a poet, I was a writer, I was a literary man. And I made some film, and I knew that as I'm sure you must be knowing in Canada and the United States, because it's the money, it's the financial power behind which can mold things, which can undo and do.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So it's exactly the same. And I never knew this game. I was too innocent for that. And I had burnt my figures. But then in '55, when I told Mr. Vasan, that great filmmaker, he was the president of the Film Federation of India at that time, I said that at that time I decided that in his friendship I had learned a lot of business. He told me the ethics. One thing I like is he you see, taught me business, but an honorable business.
Uh-huh.
I still remember many things he said. He was, as you know, he was very greatly respected.
Oh, yes, of course.
Because he had, you see, entered the footsteps of your father, great father, Mr. K. Subramaniam. And I had...
Incidentally, just for, as a child I remember distinctly, and as a youngster I remember when I was in high school and even before going to university, my father always spoke very, very highly about you.
No, he was very kind to me. I should say he was very kind to me because I learned so much and I was inspired so much from him, by him rather, because when I went to Madras, I had met him earlier. I was president of the Writers Association.
Right.
And I had met him because he was so socially awake person, but he had gained his status as a man who looked to the interest of the industry for which he had worked, and he was much above himself. I remember him in many conferences. He was most respected. He had forgotten his personal loss, but he was for the industry. He was I should say, one of the godfathers of our industry at that time.
Oh.
And Mr. Vasan also respected him. So I was in Madras with Mr. Vasan, and because he had picked up myself and Mr. Dilip Kumar as an actor for him, and we were old friends, and I wrote one more for Mr. Dilip Kumar, Sang Dil, a film which I really enjoyed writing. I think it's one of my very good works. And then I came out and made my first color film, Arzu.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
And,
Beautiful movie.
yes, Arzu. And then next I made Aankhein.
आप अगर बुरा ना माने तो मैं मैगजीन देख सकता हूँ?
एयर होस्टेस से ले लो।
ऐ नरगिसे मस्ताना।
It's very fascinating to listen to you. You have probably received more awards than anyone can even count in terms of the number of awards, because I know you've received the President's Award, you've received Filmfare Award more than once for many of your movies. Tell us a little bit about your awards.
Well, I should say that the first time I was fascinated by an award was in Mussoorie Film Festival. That was my earlier periods. I did a picture called Badi Bahu, and there was a festival in Mussoorie, and they called me over. And you see, I was so raw in films. When I came, I was so raw, I didn't know what it would mean to get an award or something. So I went to Mussoorie, and they gave me such a grand reception, and they gave me that award, you know. Here's that, with that Ashoka pillar and all that.
Right, uh-huh.
Then I was thrilled in Tashkent once, this Arzu.
Right.
Arzu got, you see, there was a special award there's a whole USSR, there's a They have got their writers' associations regional,
Right.
state-wise.
Uh-huh.
You see. But they have got one national writers' association which belongs to the total Russia.
Right.
And those writers gave me the award for the best story. It was very thrilling.
I see. Okay.
And the award was given to me when, you see, at a place where our great Prime Minister, Mr. Shastri, had signed that famous
yeah.
historic Tashkent Agreement.
Right.
And I was asked to speak from the same table. I sat on the same chair. And that's where I said, as a writer, I had the honor to know Mr. Shastri. Actually, he was supposed to inaugurate one of my movies, which I was going to make at that time, called Lalkar. From that chair and from that table, I said, look, on this table, one of our prime ministers signed an agreement fixing up the boundaries of the countries. From the same table today, I speak that I don't believe in any boundaries.
Excellent.
As a writer, I don't believe in any boundaries. I only believe in one bond, and that is humanity, which crosses the political boundaries. As a writer, as a poet, I feel that I must be able to communicate to you. My thoughts can pass all political barriers, and they have got to.
Beautiful.
Because it must touch the basic human being within you.
Beautiful.
If I write for the humanity, then there are no political barriers.
There was a period whereby you ever were in a conflict of interest situation with the stars, for instance, when the stardom became more and more popular. I keep asking this to different producers.
You are asking a question, it's a very tricky question, Mr. Chandrasekar, but as a communicator, what you have said, I like the idea, because basically I was a writer when I came to films, and I became a producer or a director to say something, to express myself.
Right.
I have never been a politician. As a writer, even in the literary fields, I fought against any writer becoming politically biased. Of course, individually, each one of us has got some kind of a liking or disliking or somewhere. But I always felt that the writer must be the most free soul, the most free thinker in this world, because if the writer takes sides, then who will tell the truth?
Fascinating. Fascinating.
You
That's
see,
very interesting.
The writers should not take sides. I will side with a communist or I will side with a capitalist at a point when he is right. If he is not right, I must say, you are not right.
That's fascinating.
That's the only person in this world is the writer who should be left free to speak the truth. And he should not belong to any party. He should not be labeled.